Crank it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down. We just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back row to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right. Good morning to you. Thank you for being here. Let's get that thing off the screen. Yeah, that's the show today, but let's get this thing rolling right here. A little bit of music, a little bit of vibe going here. Dylan is pulling all the strings for me this morning. Thank you, good sir, and good morning, everybody. 6 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock on this Wednesday, the 15th morning. What does that make it, everybody? 15th morning of the 4th month in the year of our Lord 2026. Tax Day 2026. Yeah, it's a bad day. Except that thanks to President Trump, it's kind of a good day. When's the last time you said that tax day was a good day? Nobody likes paying their taxes, but everybody loves getting refunds. And more people are getting refunds this year than have gotten refunds in a long time, thanks to President Trump. Thanks to some pretty extraordinary work by the president moving the Congress to do what needed to be done in order to cut our taxes with the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, permanence. I saw some numbers this morning. Just why not celebrate the hell out of this? I want to have to queue up. Can you dig it here for a second here? Or maybe, yeah, there it is. I can dig this. Anyway, I heard some of the numbers this morning. Refunds this year in federal income tax are up 11%. 10% more people are qualifying and getting refunds. People who didn't get refunds last year or had to pay and actually had to and owed money. Total refunds paid, according to the IRS, up 16%. For a total of over $270 billion being paid out to taxpayers this year. All very specifically, according to the IRS, due to the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, President Trump's signature accomplishment and legislation, outside of obviously closing the border, and that wasn't legislative, that was just executive. But legislatively, that's a huge, huge accomplishment. The Working Families Tax Cuts Act is getting more money in more pockets. Permanency matters too, because that's what happened with the One Big Beautiful Bill. According to the IRS, because of that bill being passed, there will be over $5 trillion refunded to the United States taxpayer in the next 10 years. That is worth a can you dig it? I still don't know why it's cut off at the beginning. It's making me mad. I dig that completely. So congratulations if you are on the refund list. Listen, I don't usually know about these things. I'm usually on the they didn't take out enough list, because I have a lot of 1099 stuff, and boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what, that can get bad. But I'm satisfied with the fact that I will be on the I don't owe list. I'm not getting a refund, but I don't owe this list because of President Trump's tax cuts. So thank you to President Trump and all of those who helped make that happen, getting it across the finish line, getting it into a reconciliation package to make it permanent. So we didn't need any of the left-wing Trump-hating members of the Senate to have to vote for it. Great news. So we got it done. By the way, that's how it's going to get done with funding ICE and funding with CBP. And ending, ultimately, this DHS stalemate. That's the plan. President Trump announced it on Truth Social. Bernie Moreno announced it on this podcast, this live stream right here on Monday. Laid out the plan for me on this very podcast last Monday. And then this past Monday, 2 days ago, told us that the president has gotten enough of the senators to get this thing through and to send it over the House. And he wants it and expects it will be done. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Expects it to be through to his desk by May 31st, so he can sign it on June 1st. That is the goal. We don't know if it's going to get past the House. Just because the Senate is saying, yes, we like it, will it get past the House? Last time I talked to a House member about this was Max Miller 2 weeks ago. And Max Miller, when I was, after Senator Moreno laid that out for me, Max Miller was none too pleased with it. Miller, 7th Congressional District, basically said that if you strip those two things out, talking about ICE funding and CBP funding, those two things out of the full DHS funding, it's going to be easy when the Democrats to take over. If the Democrats take over in November, it's going to be easier for them to repeal that funding. If you don't keep it in with the entirety of DHS funding, it's going to be repealed strictly, kind of line item wise. And so today we're going to talk to another member of the House and find out what they think about this. And that individual is, it would of course be the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan. There we go. Now we got dig. And yes, I can dig that greatly. Okay. So Jim Jordan will join me at the top of the next hour. We've got a lot of things to talk about too, Congressman Jordan and I. The FISA extension is up, or the FISA 702, the Foreign Surveillance Investigation Act. Foreign Intelligence Services Act. I always mess that up. Anyway, FISA 702 is about to expire, and conservatives want it expanded because it's extraordinarily important that we continue to be able to monitor people who are perhaps colluding and collaborating with foreign governments. It's a big deal. We're going to talk to them about that. The Senate Reconciliation Plan. We're going to talk about Act Blue as well, as Chairman Jordan, along with Chairman of the Oversight Committee, Comer. They both want... They've laid out demands in a letter to that was published yesterday. They're talking about getting information from whistleblowers entered into the record about Act Blue. And Act Blue, of course, is one of the largest Democrat fundraising arms. And Act Blue is, let's just say, basically being run unmonitored, and it needs to be, and that's what they're calling for. So we're going to talk about whether or not that organization misled lawmakers, congresspersons, and dodge subpoenas in order to hide, what they're doing and where they're putting their money. So illegal overseas donations being paid by Act Blue. I mean, we're talking about some real serious stuff here. Also, Judge Boasberg, we're going to talk about that. Chairman Jordan has been one of the biggest critics of Judge Boasberg, one of the most obvious and upfront, and doesn't even hide his bias and his TDS in his rulings. Judge Boasberg got smacked the hell down by an appeals court yesterday. So Jim Jordan and I are going to talk about that. We'll hit Iran and Swalwell and the Dignity Act too. What on earth is that? We talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to get Congressman Jordan's views on that coming up as well. So all of that is at 8 o'clock. Between now and then, we have a lot of other stories that we want to get to, and appreciate you being here and being a part of this. So I want to dive in. Let's greet the chatters. Let's see who's up early and at it this morning. Who is here and ready to leer? Let's see. Homeland Security Border Patrol SUV just passed me on 71 South at 25th Street. I couldn't be happier, said Breastplate of Righteousness. I like that too. I love that they're here. And I've heard, by the way, some rumblings that there's going to be a much larger ICE presence in Northeast Ohio very soon. I don't know that to be true. I heard some people heard from some people, kind of a thing. At least one of which I know is a little bit more connected into law enforcement than others. And so that gives it a little bit of credibility to me, but I don't have a time or a location or where or when, or what the goal is when they're coming here. We don't know if there is a massive number of people that they're seeking on the worst of the worst criminal illegal alien front. Quite frankly, now that we're almost halfway into 2026, I don't think we need to just be looking for the worst of the worst. We can go ahead and just take out all of them. So however many are here, come and get them. Come and get them. We'll serve them up. I'm fine with that because I'm done playing games with these people. But anyway, I heard there is going to be a big ice presence coming to Northeast Ohio. Good morning. Love that song, Surebank. I do too. One of the best things AI's ever done, as far as I'm concerned. I told it what I wanted. I gave it a few lyrics. It wrote the rest and wrote a beat and put a voice to it, and away we went with Red, White, and Raise Hell. Let's see what else we got going on here. A whole lot of good mornings. Remember to tap that like button, says Victor Sim. Thank you. Amen to that. Wasn't a happy tax day for me. I felt like I paid too much all year and I owed more. Well, that's not good. You should be joining the rest of the crew. President, like I said, millions upon millions of Americans. What did I say? 16% higher refund total paid out to American taxpayers, and 10% more people received refunds this year or are receiving refunds this year. So I'm not sure, obviously, about every individual situation, but sorry to hear about that for you. Happy napalm to Charlie. Thrilled we could file earlier this year. Got it done early, and getting paid was faster too. Politically incorrect mechanic says, not my refund, but according to TurboTax, I paid over $4,000 less than I did last year. Outstanding. That is Can You Dig It worthy. Curious what tax brackets the people getting refunds are in. It's across the board. From what I understand, I remember when they passed it, it was literally going to be across the board. Ground ops, Democrats won't care if they get a refund. You know what? I was talking to somebody last night. Who was I talking to? I was talking to Charlie a little bit. Anyway, maybe it was Charlie and I. You want to challenge a Democrat friend? You want to challenge a Democrat coworker? If there's a conversation that you can start about you get your taxes paid, how much you get back, kind of a thing. You want to have some fun. Ask your Democrat funds who admit that they got a refund, especially if they got a bigger refund than they had before, they expected before. And they're Trump haters. Ask them if they're willing to live, to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. Ask your Democrat friends, colleagues, coworkers, acquaintances, frenemies, probably. Ask them if they're willing to turn that check around and sign it right back over to the government. Why would they want a Trump tax cut? They hate Trump so much. If Trump cut their taxes and they got a refund, they should, on principle, they should send that right back, right? That should be immediate. I don't want your money, Trump. I don't want your Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Yeah, get this out of here. That right? That should kind of be their mantra. You hate Trump so much, give the money back. Give that back. Walk it. Don't just talk it. Lazy sons of. Let's see what else we have. I am paying more than ever this year. I don't like the sound of that either. I don't know why that would be. I'm hoping it's because you made more than ever this year. You got to remember, it is still tied to how much you bring in. Sit down with Casey John. He's a tax man, indeed. Roz reminding everybody to put the thumbs up. Amen. 2 years, and their investigations haven't put anyone in jail. I know that. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. Yeah, why are there 80 people there with 15 thumbs? That doesn't make any sense at all. It's a great question, Roz. Make it happen. You know what? Everybody, don't just leave it to one or two people. When somebody new joins the chat, tell them, hit the thumbs up on the way in. It's very simple. John, I was amazed by how many did benefit big time this tax season. It was important to have someone knowing inside and these tax cuts to benefit the most. I'm almost sorry tax season is over. Can you dig it? Warriors come out and play. Yeah, that's what it's from. Let's see, ready to go. fellow patriots, good to see. Do you need a hall pass? Yes, but the hall pass is to give a thumbs up. Hope Iced and some people get to the west side. Send some people to the west side. All right, with you. What's Big Jake got for us this morning? On time today, saw a CBP truck also on Route 2 rest stop at Route 260 a couple of weeks ago. So we're seeing CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. We're seeing ICE. We're seeing feds. Good. I'd rather not ask Jim Jordan about arrests to hear that same old answer. Why put that down on the record anymore? It's getting embarrassing. See, again, I'm going to hit this, Jimbo, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. Jim Jordan, as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, cannot arrest anybody. All right? He cannot arrest anybody. He can subpoena people, make them testify, uncover facts, and then make referrals to the DOJ for prosecution, arrest, indictment, trial, conviction, imprisonment. He can he can recommend it, but it's up to that DOJ, which is, by the way, now in new hands. Todd Blanche is running the DOJ, not Pam Bondi. Will it make a difference? I don't know. But Congress can't indict anybody. Congress can subpoena people to come and testify, gather information, write referrals to the DOJ, tell them this is what we found and this is what we think is actionable, and then it's up to the DOJ. We can't keep putting this on the members of Congress. That's the point I'm trying to make on this, okay? Bob, that was me. Oh, that we had the conversation with. Thank you, John. Oh, yeah, it was. It was Monday night. It was Monday night at our event. That's what it was. Okay, thank you, brother. Appreciate the reminder. I thought I was talking to Charlie about that last night. Generally, most Americans have already received an increased refund. Thank you to President Trump. Agree. Jimbo says, yep, it is the process and it is annoying. And it's only annoying if you've got a bad AG. And I'm sorry. Pam Bondi, I think, was in over her head as AG, even though she was AG of Florida. She knows the job. She was in over her head, and she made too many promises she couldn't deliver on in the Department of Justice at the federal level. So it is what it is. It is what it is. We'll see if Todd Blanche, who's acting AG, and it'll be really interesting to see who President Trump chooses to be permanent AG. We'll have to survive the confirmation process. But yeah, Bondi wasn't getting it done. And good morning. Another day of waiting for an arrest. Is someone else going to be nominated for AG? We were just literally talking about that, Liberty Bell. Thank you. All right, everybody, let's dive in now. Let's put Dylan to work here. I've got a lot of stuff for him to touch upon today for us and to play for us today. So again, Congressman Jordan, Chairman Jordan, coming up at the top of the hour. So we're going to start with some things that happened last night. J.D. Vance was speaking at the University of Georgia, along with Andrew Colvett from Turning Point USA, and supposed to be speaking with Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, at a TPUSA event as they kind of continue now, not continue, but to start up again this year's college tours. Of course, Charlie made a living at those, exposing leftism and inspiring open-minded people with his extraordinary debating skills. And he would go and have these presentations, and they're trying to keep these up in his absence. It'll never be the same. Anyway, Vice President Vance is a part of it. And Erica Kirk was supposed to be there last night. Erica Kirk was not there, unfortunately, because, hey, Dylan, cue up number 4, please, on the Wednesday list. And let's start with that one, because I want people to know exactly. See, this is who the left is. This is what the left is. And I hate to say it that way, but not always, and not entirely, not exclusively, but political violence lives on the left. It just does. And we can go back and list countless examples of it. I do it every time we have something like this come up. Political violence lives on the left. They don't have answers that they can use to win, rhetorically. They can't just win arguments. They don't have policy solutions. They just have anger and emotion, feelings, thinking with their heart, not their head, even though their heart is misguided as well. They're just violent people. Not all Democrats are violent people. Not all people on the left are violent people. But the violence lives on the left, if that makes sense, to try to quantify that. Anyway, Erica Kirk was supposed to be at the event last night. at the University of Georgia, speaking to students there, answering questions and discussing what's going on and so forth with Turning Point as it continues Charlie's mission in his after in his passing. His legacy lives on. So she wasn't able to be there last night, and the Vice President of the United States explained why. Go ahead, Dylan.
First of all, I love Erica, and I know that she did get some threats. And, about 2 hours ago, as you know, Andrew, I was a little worried that we were going to have to cancel the event because Erica was not going to come, and she was very worried about it. And I talked to the Secret Service, and obviously these guys do a very good job. And I said, you know what? Let's let Erica do what she needs to do for herself and her family. I'm sure Andrew will fill in. And let's go and make this an amazing event with the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, Georgia. So absolutely, we're going to do this thing. But look, I mean, in so many ways, when did Charlie die? It was mid-September, I believe.
September 10th.
September 10th.
And in the past, that's right, it was the day right before September 11th. And in so many ways, the past 6 or so months have been two separate living hells for Erica Kirk. And the first is, of course, that she lost her husband. First of all, I love Erica.
All right. I wish that clip didn't end right there, but it did. Because what he's about to talk about there is extremely important. The living hells that she has been through. She went through the hell of the murder of her husband, the father of her children. She went through that. And then ever since then, she's been going through the hell of leftism. Leftists judging the way she mourns, judging the way she dresses, judging the way she speaks, judging the way she hugs people, judging everything about her. And they hate her almost as much as they hate Charlie. And it's one of the most grotesque things that I've ever seen. But they continue to judge her, and they do continue to threaten her, which is why she was forced. She said she had to listen to her. She put out a tweet on it, but she said she had to listen to her security team. And Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, confirmed that there were credible threats, and they almost shut down the whole event. They decided to keep the event on, but Erica was going to stay away from this one, as you just heard Vice President Vance say. It's sad. It's disgusting, but I'm glad they kept the event on. I'm glad they kept going, because that's the one thing we cannot do, is give them an inch and let them think that they can scare, intimidate, and fearmonger and threaten and shut down conservative voices. That's the last thing that we can do, is let them do that. And so they were right last night. Andrew Colvert and the Turning Point team and Erica Kirk's team, and of course, special guest star there, Vice President J.D. Vance. They needed to keep this event on, even if they were going to kind of keep Erica away out of an abundance of caution. And I'm glad. The threats to her were very specific. It wasn't just a threat to the event. If it was a threat to the entire event, they would have had to shut it down, because the Vice President of the United States was there. And Secret Service team or not, they're just not going to do that. But the threats were very Erica specific, so that's why she sat that one out, and they did what they came to Georgia to do last night, which is have a robust discussion and debate, which is what the other things that I want to share with you. So go back up to the top of the list here, if we could. We're going to dive into, well, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Because I want to, yesterday's lead story, and it was the dominant story, and the whole podcast yesterday, the whole live stream yesterday, was about President Trump and the battle, war of words with Pope Leo. And largely because of the picture that was, and we had that context provided to it yesterday by Charlie, politically incorrect mechanic Charlie, to specify, that image of Christ as Jesus healing the sick wasn't something that he created, and it wasn't something that was created just because of the fight with Pope Leo. It was created about 45 days ago. Back in February, somebody made that. Some pastor made that. But it was tweeted or reposted, on Monday by President Trump, which is why it sparked all of the controversy with Catholics. And even conservative Christian Trump-supporting Catholics have said that crossed the line. Don't do that. And he took it down, to his credit. Thank you, Mr. President. But the battle with Pope Leo kind of continues. And Pope Leo made some sort of a statement yesterday that said, I am not afraid of the Trump administration. as if that's supposed to be some big, bold stand. Look, he's the pontiff. He's the leader of my church. I respect that position, if not that man right now. But with all of that due respect, allow me to say, Pope Leo, what the hell are you talking about? By the way, if I was talking to Pope Leo, I probably wouldn't use the word hell. But since it's just us, and he's not going to hear this, Pope Leo, what the hell do you mean you're not afraid of the Trump administration? Why would you be? Have there been threats? Seriously, have you been threatened? Have you been threatened with a subpoena by the government? Have you been threatened with an investigation? What do you mean you're not afraid? Why would you be afraid? You said some very, very critical things about Donald Trump and the policy that he has implemented with respect to the war in Iran. He responded with some probably over-the-top criticisms of you. It's just two guys representing two monolithic organizations, one representing the massive worldwide Catholic Church, the other representing the world's lone remaining superpower, the United States of America. Just a couple of leaders having a war of words with each other. What do you mean you're not afraid? You're making it sound like there's something to be afraid of and you're being big and bold. I don't understand that thinking. President Trump, the administration, no one has said anything threatening to you. So let's cool that a little bit, Pope Leo. I beg you. So last night at the University of Georgia Turning Point event, Vice President Vance got into the story, and he wanted to respond to Pope Leo. So this is clip number one. Let's listen to what the Vice President said.
Number one, when the Pope says that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword, there is more than a 1,000-year tradition of just war theory. Okay. Now, we can, of course, have disagreements about whether this or that conflict is just, but I think that it's important in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy. I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. And I think that one of these issues here is that there has been, again, hey, random dude screaming, I told you I'd respond to your point. I just want to respond to this question first. But I think one of the issues here is that if you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant. Now,
First of all, Vice President Vance is a phenomenal spokesperson. He's a tremendous presenter, and he is extraordinarily articulate with his thoughts. And I love how he handles the hecklers. I got another heckler clip that I'm going to play here in a minute. But his point about Pope Leo is correct. Pope Leo, look, there are matters of theology, and Pope Leo is probably the preeminent, as the Pope, figure to deliver remarks, commentary, guidance to the flock on matters of theology. And then there is ideology, which is political. And the President of the United States is far better positioned to make decisions on theology. To the first point that Vice President Vance said there, by the way, there is a 1,000-year tradition. He talked about a 1,000-year tradition about just war theory, meaning wars that are just. Wars that are conducted to save lives are just. Our war in the late 1930s and early 1940s, our war ended the slaughter of millions in Europe. Hitler was killing tens of millions of people. A lot of people like to say 6 million. It was 6 million Jews, but there were others besides Jews. Over 10 million people were slaughtered by Hitler's brutal campaign, the final solution. That was a just war. A lot of people died in that just war, but more people were saved because of it. Same thing in the Pacific Theater. That was a self-defensive war, but we declared war. And according to what the Pope is trying to suggest, and anti-Trumpers who are Catholics trying to suggest that war is never okay. And Pope Leo said something to the effect of, and you heard J.D. Vance quote it there, something to the effect of, God does not listen to those who wield the sword. God does not listen to those who wage war. And that is simply, again, he's the pontiff, but no. There have been many, many just wars throughout history in order to stop madmen from doing horrific things to God's people. Okay? That's extraordinarily important. There's a comment on the screen right now that I want to hit here again, because I'm going to argue with Charlie G, who I love. Great man, great supporter. Appreciate you, Charlie, a lot. Seriously. Just we disagree on this passionately. I remain in the opinion, he writes, that the Trump healing depiction was absolutely not wrong. He said, I just wanted to be the America healer. No, I'm sorry. He portrayed himself, or he didn't, whoever made that, portrayed him in the flowing robes of Christ, with the light of the Holy Spirit in his hand and on the head of the sick patient that he was healing. We all know Jesus Christ is known for the miracles of the healing of the sick and the raising of the dead. Only Christ does that. Only Christ does that. And notice I said that in present tense. Did that during the time of his 33 years of life, does that now in the eternity of his afterlife, our lives. Only Christ does that. You don't mock that. You don't mimic that. You don't cosplay that. You don't do that. And if somebody makes that, you look at it and you kind of say, yeah, that's not appropriate. And you don't share that. It's blasphemous. And it ticked off even Trump supporters like me, very, very disappointed by that. You just don't do that. And I'm so glad that he took it down. He wasn't saying I'm a healer. If you said, like I said before, when he said, I thought it was a Red Cross type thing, I was like a doctor. Really? Well, then you'd have been in the lab coat, not in flowing Jesus robes with the light of the Holy Spirit coming out of your hands. So let's not do that. All right? We can agree to disagree, by the way, Charlie. Like I said, still love you, but we're going to disagree on that. Now, that's one response to Pope Leo, the one from Vice President Vance. Here is what might be the perfect response. Tom Homan, this is number 2, Dylan, grab this one for me. Tom Homan, border czar, chief director of the largest deportation in American history, what it's supposed to be. But quite frankly, the handcuffs have still been on ICE. The handcuffs have still been on CBP. We're not letting anybody else in. I put up a graphic last night. And in fact, we'll play this, Dylan, while this video is playing, if you want to be hunting in another tab for my Facebook page, the Strictly Speaking Facebook page. I posted this last night. A graph that was put up by the Cato Institute, which, by the way, is very anti-Trump. But it really, really illustrated the phenomenal success of the Trump administration in stopping the illegal invasion of this country at the border. But this is different. We're talking about the deportation of those who already invaded when Biden rolled out the red carpet. We're under the pace we need to be at. We're underperforming that. We need to pick that up quickly, honestly. But Tom Homan yesterday spoke not about that. He was speaking about the Pope Leo attack on President Trump and the attack on, the president's policies vis-a-vis the war in Iran and so forth. Tom Homan is one of my favorite people in government, not just of this time, but of all time. I just say he is just a straight shooter, gets the job done, doesn't play games, doesn't suffer fools gladly. I love listening to the man. Listen to him now opine on Pope Leo's attack on President Trump.
I'm not going to speak for the president, I'm speaking for myself. I'm Catholic. I wish they stay out of immigration. They don't know what they're talking about. Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years and talked to a 9-year-old girl that got raped multiple times, or stood in the back of tractor trailer, 19 dead aliens at my feet, including a 5-year-old boy that baked to death, if they understood the atrocities that happen on the open border, I think their opinion would change. And I welcome discussion with any of them because they don't understand. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. Would President Trump had the most secure border in the lifetime of this nation right now? Lives are being saved. He's saving thousands of lives a year because he has a secure border. Human traffickers are out of business, right? The cartels are going bankrupt because of that secure border. I wish they'd understand that, because if they did, I think they have a different opinion.
He is, like I said, he is as straight of a shooter as we have. He's phenomenal. And he's also phenomenally correct. Every word about that. If Pope Leo and the Catholic Cardinals, and Tom Holmes said, I'm a Catholic. This is my leader too. But if they would listen and learn a little bit more, they would keep their mouths shut about immigration policy, because they don't know. They don't know how many victims are being created by the illegal immigration policies of the past president and of the left now, what they want as they continue to obstruct ICE and to stop them from deporting. We're trying to stop more victims from being created. It's kind of funny. Pope Leo, on one hand, is criticizing President Trump for the war in Iran because people are dying. Yet he is also defending the Democrats here in the United States who are opposing deportations, even though people are dying. A little consistency would be helpful here from the Pope, from the Cardinals who are going on TV and just trashing President Trump for immigration policy and sealed borders and so on and so forth. Sorry, you're wrong. Pope Leo, you're wrong. And every cardinal that is coming out there and being very active politically on this issue are just wrong. And it's okay for us to say so. We'll refrain from using insults. We don't want to use insults. That's kind of the thing. Again, President Trump has a unique way of speaking on things, and escalating that war against the Pope with some insults, it's not going to be helpful to, as I said yesterday, this is all about winning. I want to win. I want to win in November so bad I can taste it, because if we don't win, the country is going to be lost in due time. Just understand that. The Republic will not survive the Democrat takeover in November if it happens. When they get in January, they will immediately invoke the nuclear option of the legislative filibuster on the Senate side, pass all of their wild, crazy, leftist, Marxist, socialist, communist ideas to forever control this country. That's what they will do immediately. I want to win so bad. We have to win in November. You understand? And so I was worried yesterday as we talked about this, about our base, the Catholic and Christian base of conservatives being angry about President Trump insulting Pope Leo and then posting that painting. That was, or that not a painting, it was an AI generated thing. Just like I said, we don't need to have enemies within our own ranks. We need everybody to be on the same side. So we got to be careful how we say certain things. Looks like Dylan found that graph. Go ahead and put that up there, Dylan. Look at that. And can you, I don't know if you can make it bigger or not. If you can, great. Here, you know what I can do? I'll fill the screen with it. Hold on. That helps a little bit. This was put up by the Cato Institute, who hates Trump. President Trump, by the way, reposted this on Truth Social. That's where I got it. This was put up by the Cato Institute, who hates Trump, but they can't hide the fact that the Democrats were a disaster on the border. And that's a little bit hidden by some graphics on my screen, which is different than yours, so I can't read beneath the graphics. We are here something because of the, I think it's something about the best border in the history of the USA, like I said. But the legal entries, the head of the graph is all that really matters there. Legal entries by asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico legal entry border points are down 99 point. This can't be a real stat, right? I mean, we know it is, but it's one of these things where it's like, if somebody said, I'm going to cut it by, 100% or 99.9%, they'd say not possible. But it's real. Look at it. Cato hates Trump. But look at illegal alien border crossing and phony asylum seekers during the Biden years. Look how it just climbed from January of 2021 into 22, 23. The mountain just gets higher and higher and higher as they just had millions upon millions of illegals flooding this country upon invitation, direct invitation and red carpet rollout from Joseph R. Biden. Look at that number. And then look at what happened starting in January of 2025. That's not even, I'm trying to make a comparison to that. Anybody ride the Top Thrill Dragster? I don't, not a chance. But you look at that from that peak On the top, straight down, it is straight down. It's not even on an angle. It's just, a free fall. And that's exactly what has happened. And look at how it has stayed that way for now a year plus. January of 2025 to April of 2026. And that graph stops at January of 2026. But we know that we are now 11 months consecutive without having a single illegal alien released into this country, which is also very, very can you dig it worthy. So if you'll indulge me. Yeah. Can and do dig said statistic. All right. Something else that I can dig and I want you to dig as well is I want you to dig Mark King. Mark King, if you are on Medicare and you ever find yourself confused by your coverage, you're not alone. Nothing wrong with you. It's hard. It's complex. It's confusing. Medicare is that way. Wrong information or no information at all can be very, very destructive to your Medicare coverage. So that's why I want to tell you, make it simple. Mark King has been keeping Medicare simple for seniors on Medicare who are changing their plans and to those aging into Medicare for the first time who are establishing their plans. Mark makes it simple. Everything you thought you needed, you thought you knew, or the things that you know you need to know, you'll get from Mark King. And he will not charge you for his services either. He's going to help you understand how Medicare works, what coverage you have, what options are available to you based on your individual needs, because everybody's is different. And that's why Mark represents multiple carriers, not just one insurance company. Single insurance company is going to tell you, this is it. This is what you got. This is the only plan you have. You know, okay, because they want you to buy their plan. Mark doesn't care which company you use. He just wants you to have the best one based on your circumstances. No pressure, no confusion, just honest guidance from somebody who's been doing this for nearly 40 years. I have been proudly sending people to Mark King for over 5 years, and I will continue to do so. Ever since I first met Mark and learned about his business, learned about his practice, learned about his philosophy, learned about his ideology too. He's a man that I know I can trust. And if I can trust him with Medicare, I'm going to continue to send senior citizens. I'm not of that age yet, but when that time comes, I'm going to know where to go. 440-832-8936 is the number to call. 440-832-8936. Log on to keepingmedicaresimple.com. I continue to trust Mark with Medicare, and you can too. All right. Thank you to Mark King, by the way, for being a foundational sponsor of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Without him and without people like AFP, Americans for Prosperity, and others, we would not be here. All right. And just so you know, if you are representing a great organization, whether it's your business or whether it's a conservative organization or something, we are looking for more foundational partners as well to be able to keep this up and keep this going in the long term. So those who are interested, reach out to me, bob@strictlyspeaking.org, bob@strictlyspeaking.org, and we can talk about that. All right. I've got one more clip that I want to share with you on the whole battle of the church between church and state. Kind of interestingly enough, the Trump being the state and the church being our Catholic Church, being hypercritical of President Trump and what he does. And the fact that he is trying to protect and make, there's another, hey, Dylan, the same place where you found that graph, if you were on my Facebook page, go back to it and see if you can grab that meme that's there as well. It's the 4 separate scenes of Pope Leo. Pope Leo responding to 4 different events in very different ways. Let me know if and when you have that, because I want to share that. It'll really underscore the point that we're trying to make here. Because this is so much more than just the Pope, the leader of our church, criticizing Donald Trump for waging war by, attacking Iran. It is so much bigger than that. Yeah, you found it, Dylan. Fire it up there. Throw that up there. Yeah, and again, I don't know if we can make that any bigger. Probably not height-wise. Let me see if I can full screen it. Oh, there you go. That helps. All right, so let's scroll it. At the top, Muslims destroy Europe. Pope Leo. What's happening? What? Huh? Next one down. When Muslims slaughter Christians in Africa. Pope Leo. What? Huh? What? Next one down. When Muslims burn churches worldwide. Huh? What? Wait, what? And by the way, if there was more room on the meme, I would add another one. When Muslims kill other Muslims, the Iranian regime has killed between 30 and 40,000 Iranians, their own people, for daring to protest the regime. No one questions the regime, or you die in terrible, terrible ways. Did Pope Leo condemn that? If he did, it didn't make headlines. Not aware of it. As far as I'm concerned, it's more. So all of these Muslim atrocities, killing Christians in Africa. Hardly a peep, to my knowledge, hardly a peep from Pope Leo. But, final frame. Looks like we're going to have to, there it is. When America bombs Muslim countries, outrage, out of the slumber we awaken, and outrage from the Pope, chastising the president for daring to carry out these deadly attacks on Iran. It's kind of like that. Thank you, Dylan. It's kind of like that. I don't like that fact. It is, but it is a reality. This is kind of what we're talking about here. Where was the Pope? Where was the church? And I'm not, again, I'm a proud Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic. And I respect the office of the Pope or the title of Pope, the leadership of the church. But a little consistency would go a long way here. You're concerned about lives, and you're damning those who are waging war and committing atrocities. Do it to everybody. You're instead, you're taking somebody who's trying to bring peace to the Middle East, somebody who's actually waging war to bring about peace. When you cut off the head of a very dangerous, poisonous, venomous snake like Iran, then people are not in danger of being bitten. Right? Fewer victims is a goal. It should be the goal here. And that's what President Trump is doing. Anyway, one more quick response to that. This one from the other side, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't even know what you want to call Joy Behar. But if you ever turn on the cackling hen show, The View, first of all, you got to probably see somebody about that. You're doing some dangerous things here. You're hurting yourself. I think probably your psychological health is probably in jeopardy if you're turning on that show at all, much less if you watch it religiously. But Joy Behar weighed in on the Trump versus Pope Leo controversy over the last 72 hours, which is really all this has been. It's kind of been since Sunday. But Joy Behar weighed in, not just specifically about the Pope, and not just specifically about Trump, but about Jesus Christ himself. Now, a lot of us feel like some of these really radical Marxist and borderline communist left-wing commentators on The View, a lot of us have opined that these people are demonic, that they have evil intentions. We don't always have evidence of that. But I think what you're about to hear might qualify as evidence for that. Demonic. Go ahead, Dylan.
Concerned
Yeah,
by.
but
She was
Jesus
really
himself
comparing-
did not run around saying, I'm the Messiah. I'm the Messiah.
Jesus
This
kind of
guy,
did say he was
you're
the
supposed to have a little bit of.
That's
here's
exactly
the
what
thing.
Jesus said. I am the Messiah.
You know what?
No, is it not?
It's been a
Jesus
minute
was more
since I
Here's
heard
the
like
thing.
that.
The Pope's got him. He's got God behind.
She just said, I knew Jesus.
Jesus was not narcissistic like this guy.
And
But
by
when
the way,
you are the Messiah, it's not narcissism to say it.
Yes, it is.
When you are the Messiah.
I'm going to move this along because this is like, it's too much for me.
She just declared that declaring yourself to be the Messiah is narcissistic, even if you are the Messiah. Hey, Jesus didn't go around saying, I'm the Messiah. That is exactly what he said. It's how he built his following. He told people who he was. She didn't even think he did that. And then when informed that, yes, he did, She was shocked to say he couldn't be as narcissistic as this guy, talking about Trump, who portrayed himself by the way of that painting as Jesus. She literally insulted Jesus Christ and said it's narcissism. It's not narcissism if you're the Messiah. It's not narcissism if trying to think of a good comparative here, and I don't know, but if you say something that is factual, like for Donald Trump to say, "I'm president of the United States," and he might say such things with confidence and swagger and bravado. "I'm president of the United States." It's a fact. It's not narcissism if you're telling people what you are, even if you say so proudly. Jesus Christ told people, "I am the way, the truth, and the light. I am the Messiah." He told his disciples this. They followed him because they believed this. He told them that his body would be given up, his body for them, because he had to go to the Father. His blood would be spilled for them and for all mankind because he had to go to the Father, his Father. He was going to have that blood shed and go through that torture and that death to save all of us. He said it out loud in all of his preachings. And Joy Behar says that would be narcissistic. Hence the reference to demonic type of mindsets. It's more than just politically, ideologically different from what the rest of us think, or a lot of us think. That kind of stuff is demonic. To literally to verbally insult the Savior of the world for Christians, millions upon millions of Christians around the globe. It's demonic. It's beyond insulting. It's demonic. All right. I want to get one more clip in before 8 o'clock, because that's when we're going to have Jim Jordan on. I want to play the next one down for JD Vance getting heckled. If you would, Dylan, cue that one up for me. Last night at that Turning Point USA event in Georgia that we talked about, Vice President Vance was not only discussing, the things that we have already talked about, which is Democrat violence, the threats against Erica Kirk, and so many other things. Somebody wanted to know, and somebody wanted to challenge Vice President Vance on the U.S., our support for Israel, and the goings on in Iran and in Gaza. They called J.D. Vance what they call President Trump, which is a purveyor of genocide. And Vice President Vance is a phenomenal speaker, and he's an even better debater, which is what he had to do here. Watch this.
So if you want to complain about what happened in Gaza, sir, to complain about what happened in Gaza, why don't you complain about Joe Biden in the last administration? We're the administration that solved that problem. And by the way, not only was our administration like the administration that solved the problem, but the president, excuse me, sir, right now, you see more humanitarian aid coming into Gaza than it has any time in the past 5 years, because we have taken that situation. So,
okay, if you couldn't hear the heckler yelling, "You're killing children," this is just honestly, it's either one of the purveyors of that misinformation and that lie, or this is just one of the incredibly obtuse, misinformed individuals who still think, and they believe the mainstream media, and they believe the tablecloth wearers, talking about the quote unquote "from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free" Palestinian supporters who want every Jew to be run from the Jordan River and into the Mediterranean Sea. They're the ones who are saying that genocide is happening in Gaza. They're the ones that have been saying that the U.S. and Israelis are targeting children, are killing children. It is 1 billion% false. And this is why, by the way, I would never be able to be a politician. Vice President Vance handled that the way he did. If I were up on that stage, I would have said, "You have no idea what you're talking about, you stupid son of a bitch. That's what I would say. Okay? Because I don't have that tact. I'm a bull in a china shop when I get around people like that, because they are stupid SOBs. Iranian-backed Hamas fighters, what they call fighters, what we call terrorists, they literally hide behind children. They use them as human shields. And when we have to fire back to stop our children from being killed, they hide behind those children. And then if a child dies, they scream, "You're killing children." And they don't care, because in their minds, kids going to Allah anyway. Martyred. They don't care if they launch rockets at Israel from the top of a schoolhouse, a school building, so that when the return fire comes to where that rocket came from, oh, look at that. You attacked a school. You're killing children, committing genocide. It's disgusting and it's repugnant, and it's all coming from Iran, which is why we are where we are right now. And people need to understand the whole of that. Everything that you see in Gaza is the responsibility of Tehran. Everything that you see in Lebanon, where Hezbollah is firing indiscriminately at U.S. targets every day, not just since this war began, but that all comes from Tehran. Everything that you see happening from the Houthis, Iran. Boko Haram attacking Christians in Africa, funded by Iran. So again, going back to the Pope, when the Pope says those who wield the sword, God doesn't listen to those who wield the sword. Baloney, to be gentle. Baloney. Because Vice President Vance saying last night to the University of Georgia at that crowd that there has been 1,000 years of just war theology. Just wars are necessary to save more lives. If you have to take the lives of evil people who are killing indiscriminately innocent people, God rewards those who save innocent lives. President Trump here is cutting off, again, the head of a very venomous snake. And when you cut the head off of said snake, you stop innocent people from being bitten by it. That's what's going on in Iran right now. That's why it's a just war. And it's not a war of choice either. I'm tired of that claim that it's a war of choice. It is not a war of choice, because what president would choose to do this right now in the middle of a midterm season? We're in the midterm campaign season. This started in February, obviously, but President Trump knows he's coming into the critical year of his presidency. If we don't have a really strong year, we lose in November. If we lose in November, the last 2 years of this administration are basically, it's destined. It's preordained. Nothing will get done legislatively. We'll have impeachments. We'll have of the entire cabinet, not just Trump. We'll have investigations to beat the band. The left will take over all the committees, and nothing will get done. The country may never, ever survive it. So who would choose to have a war like this when we need to have a really strong economy for the next 11 months, again, going back to February, when we need to really, really let the great work of the one big beautiful bill ramp up, put more money in more pockets and do? Who would choose to raise gas prices to over $4 a gallon in the middle of all of this? Nobody, except an idiot. And you can hate Donald Trump all you want, but don't call him an idiot, or else you reveal yourself to be one. You understand that? He wouldn't choose this if this didn't have to be done right now to cut the head off of that snake before it becomes even more lethal with nuclear weaponry. If this didn't have to be done, it wouldn't be being done. Understand that. All right. I just got word that our guest is in the green room, and so let's bring him now to the stage. He is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and Ohio's 4th Congressional District Representative, Congressman Jim Jordan, back with us here on Unfiltered. Good morning, Congressman. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Bob. Good morning to you.
You're a busy guy. You've got a lot of things going on, a lot of hearings. We got FISA things to talk about. We got to act.
Yeah.
But can I start with Iran only because
Sure.
when you came in, I was kind of just talking about some of what Vice President Vance said last night to some of the critics at the University of Georgia there. The war of choice. Trump's Trump's opponents, both on the left and those on the right, because we have a bit of a schism. There's a split in the conservative community about whether we want to be here right now. And those critics are saying he didn't have to do this right now. This is a war of choice. I disagree. What say you?
No, I'm with you. And look, the critics are a pretty small number. I mean, the vast majority of Republicans agree with what the action the president's taken, because we all understand the facts as you were pointing them out. 47 years, this regime, largest state sponsor of terrorism, did terrible things, killed Americans, killed Israelis, killed others, killed thousands of their own people, killed, I think we may have talked about this a few weeks ago, but killed this to show you how bad this regime is. My background is sport of wrestling. We've talked about this before, but in Iran, wrestling is big. They took the 19-year-old junior champion, according to press reports, their 19-year-old junior wrestling champion, hung him publicly to send a message. This is how evil we are. Do not dare protest against this regime. That is the regime that's on the verge of getting nuclear weapons, and you're not going to do something? All the other presidents said, oh, we'll deal with Iran, but they never would. Only this president was willing to take the tough course, but the right course, to keep this regime, this evil regime, from getting a nuclear capability. And I think when we look back in history, when we look back on this date, we'll say, like, God bless President Trump for taking action that no other president was willing to do.
I agree 100%. And, one other element of this that's really kind of dominated the news cycle over the last 72 hours or so is this kind of battle between the president and Pope Leo. And Pope Leo, the representative of the church, of which I am a part, saying that God doesn't listen to those who wield the sword. God doesn't listen to those who wage war, essentially. Vice President Vance disputed that last night. I have disputed that as well. What do you make of the president? And because, again, what I said yesterday, I criticized a lot of this because we can't have the base, the Catholic Church, and Christians larger, in a larger sense, alienated going into this midterm election. We need all of us on the same side, but there suddenly is a bit of a headbutting here between the president and Pope Leo. What do you make of that, Congressman?
Well, again, I go back to what I just said, and what you were saying earlier is that this was a necessary action. They're getting close to getting a nuclear weapon. This regime, you cannot allow. We just simply cannot allow that to happen. And the president, this shouldn't surprise anyone. He told us this during the campaign. We've talked many times before that, this president does what he says. I always say we make the job too complicated. It's pretty simple. What'd you tell the voters you were going to do when you ran for the office, when you put your name on the ballot? If you get elected, do what you said. No one does it better than President Trump. And he told us he was going to cut taxes. He did. He told us he's going to secure the border. He did. Told us he's going to do a bunch of other conservatives on the court. They did his first term. And he also told us, I'm not going to let Iran get nuclear capabilities. We will deal with Iran different than Obama and Biden dealt with this country. That was clear. So, people can criticize, but I think this is action that is needed and justified. And if, again, think about what the world looks like and the potential harm to all kinds of millions of people around the globe if, in fact, this regime in Iran gets a nuclear weapon. We just can't have that happen. So, again, people can criticize it, say it's a war of choice or whatever they want to say. I know, I just as sure as I'm talking to you, the president's taken the action that needed to be taken.
I agree 100%. I'm just frustrated that the Pope has been silent on so many other things. For example, you mentioned the wrestler. He was one of 30 to 40,000 Iranians killed by the regime. Yeah. Not to mention, Iranian-sponsored terrorism, killing scores of Christians and others around the globe. And again, I don't hear a whole lot of outrage from the Vatican. But suddenly President Trump starts bombing Iran, and it's, oh my gosh, that's got to stop. That's what's really frustrating to me. Congressman, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about something that happened yesterday. An appeals court smacked Judge Boasberg right across his robe. And this is something that needed to be done. I hope this is the beginning maybe of some sort of judicial sanity being restored, because so many federal judges are ruling against President Trump, doing exactly what he is given the authority to do in his role as the executive. But can you talk to us about the
you've said it, but I think the big takeaway was it was in the DC circuit. I mean, we got a good decision. And, we used to say, like, oh, it's tough to get any kind of decision that we think is consistent with the Constitution and consistent and good for Republicans and conservatives and for the country in the Eastern District of Virginia, let alone, in the DC circuit. But this is in the DC circuit. So yeah, I think that's the key takeaway, and I think it underscores, maybe this overall concern you and I've had, and many people have had about the federal judiciary, and where one of these federal district judges thinks they can make decisions that impact the whole country. So it was nice to see this decision that was handed out in the D.C. circuit. I think that to me is the biggest takeaway.
I'm glad you brought that up about DC, because you're right. That matters a lot here. But any of these appeals courts and any of these decisions made by some of these judges who tried to enjoin so many of President Trump's decisions and orders, they rise all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I'm curious as to what your take is on the Supreme Court, particularly vis-a-vis the birthright citizenship. Yeah, you and I haven't talked since that hearing.
Yeah.
Obviously, they haven't issued a decision yet, but based on coverage and some of the questioning, we get an idea that maybe they're not going to go along with the president on this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say, but we'll see. Well, I assume we'll get a decision sometime this summer before the term ends. So we'll see. Again, in my mind, and I'm sure all your viewers and listeners, this is just common sense. You can't just come here and be born here and Shazam, you're now a citizen. The 14th Amendment and the way it was put together is, I think, dealt with the evil of slavery and after, in the aftermath of the Civil War, entirely different context than what we see today. So what's happening today makes no sense. And I think the key clause, this is where we hung our hat, and we filed an amicus brief with the court. The key clause is subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the 14th Amendment. So if you come here and you're a diplomat, you're not really subject to the jurisdiction in the real sense of the way that is in the Constitution. That doesn't entitle, you're not a citizen. If you're a diplomat here from France and you have a child here, that person's not. I mean, it's like that. This makes no sense what we've allowed to happen. So hopefully they'll do the common sense thing. But again, based on what we saw during the arguments, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and that's what's so frustrating, because we were so excited about the fact that we had a 6-3 court. President Trump got to almost reshape the court himself with 3 appointments, and some of those just have not been very consistent and not ruling as originalists, which is what, of course, we have been asking them to do for the duration. Let's move on to Act Blue, because I know you guys are very busy about Act Blue. This is one of the largest Democrat fundraising organizations, and they are dodging Congress. They're dodging your committee. They're dodging oversight. Can you tell us more?
We've deposed 5 people. We're going to be issuing a report. Let's just say what I'm allowed to say now is they didn't say a whole lot when we deposed them. But understand the facts here. First, Act Blue raises billions of dollars every cycle. This is the fundraising machine for the left and for Democrats. After the 2024 election, we learned in communications we got as part of our investigation, we learned that they lowered the fraud standards, and then they didn't follow the lower standards that they put in place. We know that 4 people resigned. 1 person was fired. The guy who was fired was given a nice severance package. Like I said, we've deposed those individuals, and we'll have that report coming out soon. And then finally, what the New York Times reported is there was a letter sent by Chairman Steil, the Republican chairman, colleague on the House Administration Committee. He sends a letter to Act Blue, Miss Wallace Jones, the CEO, and the response she gave back to a congressional inquiry, Miss Wallace Jones, Act Blue's lawyer, said, "We don't know that you were completely representative of the truth there. We got problems." She fired her lawyer. And by the way, her lawyer was a former Obama and Biden a Democrat lawyer who worked for a big law firm, Covington, here in town. So that's now happening, and they fired their lawyer. They're attacking their lawyer. This is all going on. So we're going to continue to dig into this. But everyone assumed, and remember what she said in that response to Mr. Steil's letter was relative to foreign contributions and whether they had actually checked everything out and made sure they didn't take foreign money. And I think, of course, the big irony is the Democrats have come after President Trump and Republicans for foreign influence in elections. And here their number one fundraising machine looks like they were taking foreign money.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is, I mean, you can't really put it into words. I don't know that they exist to talk about that. They literally accused President Trump of that. It was the number one thing that they did when they realized the political force he was going to become. We got to stop him. And they invented everything. We know what happened. So, and by the way, that, of course, has to do with FISA. So let's transition and segue into that now. FISA 702 Explain to our viewers and listeners what FISA 702 is, and it is going to expire now, as I understand it, and there is a
Next
big
week, yeah.
discussion about whether or not it should be extended. I know you want it extended. Tell us what it does.
Well, I mean, FISA stands for Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and so we want our government, we want our CIA, we want our government listening to and spying on bad guys overseas. When they do that, inevitably they pick up some Americans, and so we want to make sure that there are protocols and processes in place that protect Americans' liberties. So FISA is actually two parts. It's that part I just described, 702, and then there's what we call Title I, which is the part that was really abused. There's been abuse in both sections, but Title I is where they abused when they went after President Trump and went to the secret court, the FISA court, lied to the court, got the warrant, all that stuff. So there's those two sections. The 702 part's up for reauthorization. I think we should reauthorize it. Mainly because we've had oversight of this program for 10 years, and today's FISA is completely different than what it was a few years ago because of our oversight work and because of reforms we put in place 2 years ago. So I think it's fine to reauthorize this for some relatively short period of time so that we can continue to get information from the bad guys. We think the reforms in place are protecting your liberties and Americans' liberties. So we'll see if this can get done. And particularly when we're in military operations in Venezuela and Iran, and the commander-in-chief, who's been abused by the FISA program more than anyone else, says, we need this program to make sure we can do what we need to do in Iran.
Not all Republicans agree with you. There's a bit of a split there, and I don't know if it's 50-50 in the House, but can you tell me what your colleagues are thinking?
Well, look, no one's pushed for reform over the years more than our committee, and I would like to think the work we've done has led to the many reforms. Do we need to do some other reforms? Maybe. But what I know is it went from 3 million searches done in 2021 to 9,000 done last year. We went from 278,000 times, according to the Inspector General stuff we had asked to get, 278,000 times in those 3 million searches where they didn't follow their own rules, to where last year was 127, and most of those were typos in the process. So that is the kind of reform and progress and improvement that's been made to the program to protect your liberties. I think in light of all that, with President Trump in the White House, with Kash Patel, who was the guy who gave us the information on the dossier on the other part of FISA a few years back, running the FBI now, I think while we're in this military conflict in Iran, a short-term extension and reauthorization for 18 months, I think that's fine, and we'll continue to watch it. And if there are problems and we need to do something more, there's been talk of the warrant, which I supported in the past, but I think in light of where we're at now, it's fine to move this forward. We'll look at all that going forward. But I think a clean reauthorization is fine, and we're having discussions now. We may need to do a few more changes before we can get it passed. But I believe this thing will get reauthorized.
Speaking of reforms, Congressman and Chairman Jordan, let's talk about ICE. Let's talk about funding. The DHS battle kind of continues to rage on. And now the move is, according to the president, Truth Social posted about this a few days ago. I got this from Senator Moreno, who has kind of been the spearhead, really, on the Senate side of taking, ICE and CBP away from the DHS funding. Let's fund it separately through reconciliation, where we don't need any of the Democrat votes on the Senate side. We can't nuke the filibuster, so we're going to have to do something else. President Trump said this will work. I want it on my desk by June 1st. However, last congressperson I spoke to outside of you was Max Miller, who did not like it at all. He says, and there are going to be a lot of others like him, that separating the funding for ICE and CBP is going to be easy enough for the Democrats, if they do take the majority back, to just repeal it altogether. It's got to be lumped into the DHS funding altogether. So where is this going to be on the House side?
I mean, we'll see. Here, I think it's important to step back and understand what the Democrats, what their plan was and how they implemented their plan.
Okay.
So step one of their plan was, we're going to let in 10 million people, which they did during Joe Biden. So first they let in 10 million people. Then they create sanctuary jurisdictions all over the country to make it tough to remove those people. And now they're saying, oh, we're not going to fund ICE, the guys who do the removal. Such a deal. And so if they're not going to fund it, at some point, we're going to have to make sure ICE does get funded so they can do their job, or the Democrats will have accomplished their goal of just allowing people in and not having any type of removal proceedings for people who entered the country illegally. So I do think we have to do it. Now, I don't think we should just limit the reconciliation to ICE funding. I think there's other things that make sense for us to do. Like the military needs a supplemental funding. I don't think Democrats will vote for that. You know, when you go into a military conflict, you use bullets, you use weapons, and you need to replenish those bullets and weapons. And the Democrats are saying, no, we're not going to do it. Or you got to be kidding me. So this is the number one responsibility of the federal government, to make sure our military is prepared and able to do their mission. So I think you have to put that probably with this bill. And then third, I would think we need to do something on the fraud issue that took place in Minnesota and that we're now seeing unfold in California.
Yeah.
I think that fraud prevention measures where we really save taxpayers money, I think that needs to be part of it. So I do not agree with what we're hearing from the Senate, where they're going to do this, quote, skinny reconciliation that just focuses on ICE. I would say you got to fund the troops, which again should happen in the regular appropriations process, but Democrats aren't going to vote for that.
Well,
and then I think finally, as I said, you got to add the third element, the fraud prevention.
yeah, and that's on me, because Senator Marino, for example, didn't say it was just going to be those things. In fact, he also, in addition to the things you just listed, he said what they want to do is take a lot of the concessions that were given to the Democrats in the appropriations bills and just strip those away to make them literally and seriously, pay for what they're trying to do here. They're not just trying to reform ICE; they're trying to abolish ICE.
Right.
It's abolish the police 2.0. From 2020 is what they're doing here. So he wants to make sure that all of their projects basically are defunded through this as well. So fund ICE, fund CBP, not just for 2 or 3 years like we are now, but for 10 years, and then add in all of those other things and strip out some of the appropriations that they asked for, which you can do with the simple majority, right? If this is reconciliation. Yeah.
Right now, the debate is the leader in the Senate, who has got a tough job, and I certainly like Leader Thune, but the leader in the Senate is saying they're only going to do a reconciliation on ICE. That's it, just to fund ICE. I don't think that makes sense. I think it should be broader than that.
Yeah,
and I think we should address the things that I talked about, and maybe some others as well.
You and I disagree on very few things. Your support for Leader Thune is one of them. I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan when he was named majority leader, and it's been bearing out. But leadership on your side, just again to my other question of based on what Senator Marino talked about and what President Trump posted about. I don't know that he's actually spoken on it other than just posting about it, but about this reconciliation package. It is multiple things like you just laid out. Where is it on your side? Where's Speaker Johnson? Where's the whip?
Right now it's all in the Senate, and what the Senate leadership is saying is just going to be the funding for ICE as in reconciliation. That's it. And again, I don't.
So they're not going to listen to the president's desires here at all?
Well, they're saying that the president's fine with just doing it that way, keeping it, quote, skinny, and just focusing on ICE and this reconciliation package. And the idea is maybe you do a third reconciliation. I don't know. I just, it's taken us a year now to get to the second one. So I think if we're going to do a second one, let's do a second one that actually gets some things in there that are good for the American taxpayer, good for ICE, good for our troops.
So from the standpoint of the Democrats, will they accept just the full DHS funding outside of ICE and CBP so that we can get all of those other agencies back to being paid?
Yeah, they'll go for just funding everything in the Department of Homeland Security except ICE, and then they'll make us fund ICE in the reconciliation. They'll go for that. They supported that a few weeks ago. We didn't like this idea of pulling ICE out because, as you pointed out, in a few years, if Democrats get back in charge, they can really totally accomplish their plan, saying we're never going to fund ICE. And how do you have any type of immigration enforcement then?
Yeah, well, no, exactly. But right before you guys took your break, obviously this was the discussion point, and voice votes, not putting everybody on the record. I just wonder where they're going to go with that. Last thing for you, Congressman, and this is the ugly side of your body right now. 2 members yesterday resigning in disgrace. Representative Gonzalez for what we understand was an illicit affair and, inappropriate conduct and so forth, but not anything that was illegal. It led to a very tragic outcome, a suicide. But then you have what we have learned over the last few days about Eric Swalwell. I want to focus on that last one because we're talking about criminal activity now, not just, inappropriate conduct and so forth. We're talking about criminal activity. And what the focus is turning to now is what did the Democrats know about Swalwell and when did they know it? Because Nancy Pelosi has been his biggest champion. Senator Gallego has been his best friend, and we're supposed to believe that none of them knew about any of the horrific things that Swalwell has been accused of right now. Credibly enough, so that he ended his gubernatorial campaign and resigned from Congress. So that part, there's a lot of credibility there. What is your take?
Well, typically when you have these situations, mine is let the ethics committee do their job and get the facts, and let the voters in these respective districts decide what needs to happen. My guess is that's exactly what took place here, and each member, was hearing from their constituents, and that's why they made the decisions they did. And then if there is criminal activity, you let the justice system work and see see where that goes. This idea that I just feel like that's the best course of action. Now we do have another member where the ethics committee looks like they're going to say this person was engaged in criminal activity and did some things really bad. When they make that decision, then we as the body will make a decision on whether that person should remain in Congress or not. But I think it's always best to let the process play out.
Agreed.
And let the voters weigh in.
I totally agree, Mr. Chairman. But I'm really focused on the Democrats right now. You have said, and I've said, many people would agree that the cover-up is always worse than the crime. And to me, if Democrats can be proven to have known about what Swalwell was doing, and they said nothing, and they allowed this guy to be one of their, he has been one of the loudest critics of President Trump too, since the very beginning. He was one of the loudest critics of Brett Kavanaugh, accusing him of things that were just absolutely for which there was no evidence whatsoever. If they knew what he was doing all along and said nothing, that's the cover up here. And that's worse than the crime to allow this to happen.
Well, one thing we do know is it happened like almost as fast as, a couple summers ago when they decided Joe Biden's out, Kamala Harris is in. And it seemed to be almost like that, where they just like one weekend are like, oh, the guy who's leading candidate for the gubernatorial position for governor in California, we're making a change. So, one thing about the Democrats is when they decide that they're kicking someone to the curb, they do it. So I don't know. We'll see what comes out. In the ethics committee had started an investigation, so we'll find out what they discover.
Mr. Chairman, the orchestra isn't playing me off the stage just yet. I'm looking to make sure I don't know when I have the hook for you, so I'm going to squeeze in one last one. You and I haven't talked since Bondi. Last time I did speak with you, I asked you about Pam Bondi, and you expressed support for her at that time. Obviously, the president made a move here. Your thoughts on because and again, you know this, every time I have you on, my viewers say, when's he going to get somebody arrested? And I always tell people he doesn't do that. That's not your job. Your job is to refer things to the DOJ for potential prosecution. And we weren't getting any of those things. So your thoughts on AG Bondi being replaced and whether or not you think...
it's the president's call. The president's entitled to have the cabinet he wants, and he made this decision. I really like Todd Blanche, who's been Deputy Attorney General and now is acting AG. Mr. Blanche defended the president all during the Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, that whole era of the weaponization of the government against President Trump. So Todd's been running the place for a long while now, and I really like him. I think the president does too. So I think Todd will do a great job.
Any particular thoughts on the reason for the switch, though?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to hazard a guess as why the president in the end made the decision to do it.
You and all of us have been calling since the election, really, for handcuffs to be on people like Comey and on Smith and on I know so forth. They're just waiting for something to happen here.
Yeah, I do think, and I know I've said this, but I still think it's going to happen. Down in the Southern District of Florida, I think this whole conspiracy investigation that they're looking at, this conspiracy that existed clear back in 2016 to go after President Trump and to undermine his first term, and then it continued all the way up, until he got elected in his second term. I do think there's progress and things moving in the right direction there, specifically relative to John Brennan. I think John Brennan is definitely lied to us. I think John Brennan changed the intelligence community assessment back in December 2016, January 2017, which was the beginning of it all, when they used the dossier, and we've talked about this, used the dossier as the basis to go spy on President Trump's campaign, and then used the dossier to change the intelligence community assessment that started President Trump's first term. And that all became the predicate, if you will, for launching the Mueller investigation, which we know undermined the first 2 years of President Trump's first term, and then that led to the but it all started with Brennan and what they did with the ICA. So I do think they're moving in that direction. And again, it's not in DC, not in the Eastern District of Virginia, not in the Southern District of New York. It's in the Southern District of Florida, which is, I think, the right place to bring these charges. Hopefully that happens soon.
Amen to that. I'll let you go now before the orchestra does. Thank you, sir. All right. That's Congressman Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. That's a lot. Wow. We covered FISA. We covered Act Blue. We covered Judge Boasberg getting smacked, Swalwell, Iran. I missed one. Ran out of time on the Dignity Act. We'll get him next time on that one. I hope that's clear, what I asked him at the end. That he can't arrest people, okay? The chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, any of those committees, they can make recommendations and referrals to the Department of Justice. Here's what we discovered through our investigations, through testimony under oath. These are the things that we have found. We believe these are actionable. We believe crimes have been committed here. Then they hand that over. It's called a referral to the Department of Justice. And there, a whole bunch of people beneath the Attorney General review these things and then decide whether or not they get up to the Attorney General or the Deputy AG for charges. And then they make that decision based on whether or not there is a reasonable chance of getting a conviction if they do indict on these things. All our members of Congress and leaders of committees like this can do is hand this off to the AG, like I said. That's all they can do. If the AG doesn't act, that's an executive problem, not a legislative problem. It's not the Congress. It's not the committee. And President Trump recognized it was a problem enough to change it, to replace her. We weren't getting action. Now, I didn't ask the chairman about the Epstein files. A lot of people feel like the reason Pam Bondi got booted is because she botched the release of the Epstein files. She claimed they were on her desk when they weren't. It was all going to be released, and then it was okay. We're going to only release a certain amount of them in deference to the victims. We're going to redact a bunch of stuff and all the rest. And it's just become the appearance is of a cover-up. The appearance is of protecting, the administration or the president. And that's a bad appearance to give. And some say that's the reason she got the boot. And it may be. But the reality is we have not seen the Department of Justice dispensing a whole lot of justice. All right. If we go back to August, September, October of 2024, before the election, one of the biggest issues, the two biggest issues we all know were what? Immigration and economy, right? Immigration and inflation. The border was wide open, being completely invaded by foreign powers, taking over American cities, and on and on and on down the line. And inflation, because of Biden's policies, which was over 5.5% for on average for 4 years of the Biden administration, 5.5% inflation. Those were the top two things. But a very, very close third was we wanted justice. We wanted to see accountability for corruption in Congress or in the government. We wanted to see handcuffs being placed on the people who waged lawfare against President Trump, not just because of President Trump, but because of what it means to the country. We wanted to see charges, trials against people like he mentioned Brennan. I mentioned Clapper. We all mentioned Comey. When are we going to see some accountability for the deep state that President Trump promised us? This was, I think, as much as any, there were a lot of issues going into 2024. Obviously, the first two are very, very clear, but I think of a third one that was bigger. What was bigger in your mind when you voted in 2024 than those two things? And then again, accountability and ending the deep state, truly draining the swamp that led to the theft, in large part, of the 2020 election. This was all part and parcel to it. Accountability and making sure that there was some sort of return to, standards, if you will, in the federal government. And that was only going to happen if the people who led the coup, who tried to, again, you just heard Jim Jordan recounting it once again. They lied. They commissioned a fake dossier from a foreign intelligence agency and then used that dossier, that false information, that misinformation, those lies, took it to a FISA court, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and got the warrant to spy on the Trump campaign so that the Hillary Clinton campaign could use whatever they found to stop Donald Trump. It's one of the most egregious abuses of the process and of the government, I think, in American history. It makes Watergate look like freaking nothing. I mean, like a sitcom. And here we are, 10 years later, because this all happened in 2015 and 2016. 10 years later, no one has been held accountable. We wanted that accountability. We haven't gotten it. Pam Bondi wasn't capable of delivering it. Sad thing is, Matt Gaetz was too much of a flawed character himself to get the job, but he might have been the best one at the job. He might have been the one to pull the trigger and to deliver these indictments and to bring these charges and get this in front of juries. But I don't know. And I don't know who's going to take that spot now. Todd Blanche is the deputy AG, is now the AG acting. I don't know if that's the end, the be all end all solution, if there's somebody else. But I got to admit, it's been one of the biggest letdowns so far, in the year and 4 months or whatever of the Trump administration. All right. Great conversation with Congressman Jordan there. It's 8:35. I'm going to take a very short time out here to catch my breath, and we're going to come back. I'm going to get into the chat, and I've got a few other videos that I want to share with you and a few other stories that I want to share with you, so sit tight. We've got more coming up right here on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. All right, that's good enough. That's the timeout I needed just to catch my breath, get a drink of water, try to clear the throat a little bit. So I've got a lot more that I want to share with you, and I do want to dive back into the chat. But before I do that, I want to give you this video. Dylan, refresh our page a little bit, if you would. Did you see Joe Biden on the stage yesterday at Syracuse University? This was one of the most embarrassing I'm almost at a loss for words here. Cue up the first one there about Joe Biden and the random black guy, if you would, Dylan. That's the one. I'm so infuriated. Don't play yet. Don't play yet. I'm so trying to figure out a way to say this. While President Trump is trying to juggle chainsaws right now by working the economy, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, obviously trying to have negotiations with the Iranians, dealing with this battle with the Pope, and all of the stuff that's going on right now, the Democrats are screaming to invoke the 25th Amendment to try to remove the president from office based on his incapacitation, some sort of mental incapacitation. All right? They're doing that because Trump, like I said, is in a lot of different places, and not everything is always as smooth as we would like it to be. I bring that up now because this is the man that they had running for president without a primary. All right? Joe Biden is so extraordinarily gone. He's been an idiot for pretty much most of his 50 years in government. He's been just dumb. He's just not a smart man. He's really just a very, very shallow thinking, unobservant individual who just doesn't understand a lot of things. Add to that, then the cognitive decline that comes from his age, the idea that they ran him for re-election without a primary, not letting nobody challenge him, as if he was cognitively okay. The same people that now are invoking the 25th on Trump were perfectly fine with letting Joe Biden run until that debate happened. And when that debate happened and it exposed all of his cognitive, again, decline doesn't even begin to say it, cognitive disability. It was a disability. That's when they were like, holy crap, we're in trouble. Which is why they gave the scepter to Kamala Harris. And I say it that way because the party of no kings, no kings, no kings did not let one Democratic vote happen even after that. Okay, we're going to withdraw Biden as our nominee, and are we going to have an election? A bunch of primaries to choose who's going to run against Trump? Nope. They just gave the scepter to Queen Kamala. Okay? I bring all of that up to bring us, just to remind us of who this guy is on the stage you're about to see. This decrepit, old, cognitively non-functioning man who also has revealed himself on numerous occasions to be extraordinarily, if not racist, we'll just say race unaware. All right? From everything from, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, to his best friendship with Harry Reid, former Grand Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan, to his countless numbers of gaffes and statements about black people. This just kind of puts it all into perspective. Watch Joe Biden get confused at this speech, at this event at the university, at Syracuse University. It's a portrait unveiling. Watch him get confused by the sight of a black man in the crowd, thinking that if it's a black man, it must be Barack Obama. Watch.
I want to turn around to one guy and say, Barack, what are you doing? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. I feel like he should be standing on the right and I should be standing on the left. Hey, did you just look at Barack? Anyway, as I say, you've done good, fella.
Well, you know, I tried.
He doesn't know who that man is. He has no idea. No, keep it up there because we're going to play it again. He has no idea who that man is. He said, Barack, Barack, what do you do? Come on up. And then when he got up there, he realized it's not Barack. That's when he said, doesn't he look like Barack? Doesn't he really? No, actually, no, he doesn't. Not at all. He does not look anything like Barack. But once he realized that he had made a massive mistake, he said, "Doesn't he look like Barack?" And then he said, "But like I say, what did he say at the end there? You've been doing good. Play it again." Dylan?
As they say, you done good, fella.
Well, I tried.
That part, yeah. As I say, you done good. Who are you? That poor guy, and I don't know who he is either. That poor guy standing up there didn't know what to do. He's calling me Barack. He's calling me up to the stage. And then he says, "You done good." As I've been saying, you done good. What's the guy going to say? He's like, "I try." What are you talking about? What have I done good at? I'm not Barack Obama. I wasn't the president. I don't know what you mean. But what am I going to say? The man looked at me and thought I was Barack Obama. Why? Because he's black? It's a black guy. Joe Biden can't tell him apart. It's one of the old racist tropes, one of the oldest racist tropes in the world. A racist white person thinking that all black people look alike. Joe Biden just did it on the stage. Now you know why they couldn't run him. But where's the, and by the way, hey, Dylan, go back to my Facebook page again, because I posted something else last night in response to this. Because quite frankly, I think it was worthwhile. That guy didn't look any more like Barack Obama than this guy does. I told AI, I said, post a hypothetical picture of Barack Obama pointing at Shaquille O'Neal and saying, "Doesn't this guy look like Barack?" Boom. There it is. He's a black guy. Hey, Barack, come on up here. Come on up here. That's how freaking stupid this, again, part stupid as outlined, and his verbal gaffes go back to when he was a young member of Congress, a member of the Senate, when he was a young politician. Joe Biden's verbal gaffes are legendary. That's why when Biden was choosing his VP back in 2007, 2008, I remember Rush Limbaugh being on air every day going, "Please let it be Biden. Please let it be Biden. Please let it be Biden," because he knew it would be just, first of all, a treasure trove of jokes for, conservative media like Rush, but it would be such an embarrassment that it could drag the ticket down to the point where they can't, wouldn't be able to win. So Joe Biden has always been stupid. It's always been that part of it. But stupid, cognitively declined as he is now, and borderline racist is another thing altogether. So I just had to share that one with you. I'm going to get into the chat on that in a moment, but I've got one more video that I want to share with you, and also because I want to get the chatter's response on too. The third one down, if you would, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times is the one I'm looking for here now, Dylan. I want you to cue this one up for us, because this one is going to be a little bit different. I have been saying for 45 or 8 days, whatever it is now, basically since the beginning of the Iran campaign. Again, I still have a hard time just referring to it all the time as war, other than for simplicity's sake, because we never did declare war. It's an airstrike campaign, and obviously now a naval blockade campaign, but whatever you want to call it, I've been saying since the beginning that the Democrats are going to openly cheer, and have been openly cheering, for Iran. Okay, there's two teams in this game. There's us and there's the Iranians. They would rather see Iran win than see Donald Trump get a victory. They would rather see Iran repel the United States and have Trump call it off, tuck his tail between his legs, and suffer a humiliating defeat, rather than see the United States win, which we are, rather than see the United States bring about greater peace in the Middle East by cutting the head off of the snake, the funder of the terror proxies, eliminating their nuclear capabilities, vastly diminishing their arsenal of ballistic weapons, ballistic missiles, and so forth. They would rather see us lose so Trump takes a defeat than see Trump accomplish that, and thus make not only the Middle East more secure, but the United States safer. It's literally borderline treason But that's what they're doing. Members of Congress openly rooting against President Trump and members of the left-wing press as well. So this short video clip that I want you to hear, this is Thomas Friedman, who is a New York Times writer, noted anti-Trumper, and of course, just Marxist leftist Democrat, author of what you see there, From Beirut to Jerusalem as well. Watch what he says. He would rather, or listen to what he says here, and watch this video to what he says about what I just described, the distinction between America winning and Trump getting a W, which they cannot stand, or America losing and Trump taking a big loss. This is what I've been saying since the beginning of the campaign that the Democrats would be doing. It's just that very few of them have been as willing to articulate it as clearly as he does, that they're rooting for the other side. Watch.
Yeah, I find myself, Michael, in a situation where I really want to see Iran defeated militarily, because this regime is a terrible regime for its people in the region, and nothing would improve the region more than the replacement of this regime with a regime in Iran that was focused on enabling its people to realize their full potential and integrating peacefully with other countries, and stop occupying Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So I'm all for that. The problem is I really don't want to see Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump politically strengthened by this war, because they are two awful human beings. They're both engaged in anti-democratic projects in their own countries. They're both alleged crooks. They are terrible, terrible people doing terrible things to America's standing in the world and Israel's standing in the world. And so I really find myself torn. I want to see Iran militarily defeated, but I do not want to see these two terrible people strengthened.
So he says he wants to see Iran defeated militarily, but he does not want that to happen at the price of Donald Trump getting a win and being politically strengthened. He doesn't want to see Donald Trump or Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu in Israel strengthened by this. So therefore, he said he's torn. He calls himself torn, which means we know where he really stands. He stands against the United States of America. I don't want Iran to win, but if beating Iran means Trump gets strengthened, I don't want it. That means he is by default saying he would rather see Iran win. I really don't like them. They're really dangerous for all of the reasons he just laid out. But if defeating them means Trump gets stronger, I don't want it. Open defiance. Open cheering for the enemy of the United States, the enemy of Israel, the enemy of our Western European allies, the enemy of the world, the leading state sponsor in the world. We can end that state sponsorship of terror and Trump can get stronger, or that country can go on doing what it does and Trump gets weaker because he took an L here, and he would rather have Trump take an L. Because when you say I'm torn between what I want to see happen here, you've made it clear. How can any American, Thomas Friedman or anybody else, how can any American look into a camera and tell people I'm a little undecided on who I'm cheering for here? Because I hate Iran, but I hate Trump and Netanyahu more. If the United States is engaged in a military conflict and the loss of lives is possible, and you're torn about which side you're on, we know what side you're on. You have proven that you are on the side of the enemy. And if you think Thomas Friedman is the only one who feels that way, open your eyes, man. Seriously, look around, read, follow social media, and you'll hear what they're saying. There are millions of Democrats in this country that don't have the platform to get on TV, like on CNN, like Thomas Friedman did here. But if they had that platform, they would say the damn same thing, or worse, and just say, I'm rooting for Iran. Pick your team here. Team USA with Trump getting a victory, Team Iran with Trump suffering a humiliating defeat. Team Iran. Millions of them. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm wrong. All right, I want to get into the chat, like I said, both of those last two points and see what's been going on here. Holy cow, I am so far back. I'm at 7:30 on the chat, an hour and a half ago. I got to scroll this up forward here so I can see what is going on. There's still a lot of fights about the Pope story. Let me just dive into the middle of that real quick. Would Pope Leo have the same criticism when Eisenhower prayed for our troops at the start of D-Day? Oh my gosh. What a phenomenal question and point. I brought up, obviously, the righteousness of World War II, the righteousness of us going into Europe and you know, ending the reign of you know, the satanic Adolf Hitler. Yeah, but I didn't. You just brought it home. I brought up Pearl Harbor, not Pearl Harbor. I brought up the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. You know, praying for safety and peace, but knowing that we were going to have to commit an act of violence, a large act of violence, an act of war, in order to bring that about. Would the Pope have said that God would not hear that prayer? Because you know, I promise you, those who made that decision said their prayers every night until that moment, because they knew that thousands and thousands of innocent civilians were going to die, but in order to save millions and millions of lives. That's the way I went with it, but yours is even better. The D-Day prayer, which now is a permanent fixture on the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., due to our friend Chris Long at the Ohio Christian Alliance. And I was there and actually emceed the dedication of that memorial, that addition to the memorial, the D-Day prayer, about 3 years ago. I was very proud to be asked by Chris to come and be a part of that. And it's one of the highlights of my career, honestly, in almost 30 years of doing radio / broadcasting. That prayer was, yeah, according to Pope Leo, God would not have listened to that prayer and did not listen to that prayer because we were sending men in to kill, because we were sending men in with the sword, sending men in with guns to wage war. It's a phenomenal question. Props, massive props. Best chat comment of the day, best chat comment maybe of the show since we started this thing almost 3 months ago. I've been taking on people who are outraged at changes in United Healthcare. Okay, I want to scroll forward here. Yep, a little bit of love for Mark King here. Highly recommend. Mark and team are knowledgeable, will guide you in finding the best Medicare choices for you. Love that. More on the Pope. I want to get forward here to those last two stories that I just did with you, because I want to see what your thoughts are on this. That meme illustrates the current crisis in the church. Okay. Oh, talking about that meme, I'm assuming, talking about the meme of the 4 different scenes of Pope Leo's response to various things. The Pope really should just stay in his lane, please. I think that's fair to say. Stay on, but which is why what I said yesterday about President Trump not engaging in this, not being a part of this. President Trump, at least not in such an insulting manner, just say something like the Pope should, like J.D. Vance did last night in Georgia. The Pope is, a tremendous voice on matters of morality. Let President Trump be the voice on matters of public policy, because that's exactly correct. That way you don't get into an insult war. But the Pope did indeed decide to start playing, the role of policymaker, or at least policy advisor, when his role should be left to that of matters of faith. I firmly agree with and believe that. Let's see. Joy is Jewish. They don't believe in the New Testament. Donna, you're right. Going back to that conversation, but Jesus Christ, whether you believe in it or not, you believe he existed. And he did say he was the Messiah. If people of the Jewish faith don't believe that Christ was the Messiah, which of course they do not, they don't deny his existence, and they don't deny that he claimed that he was. And so Joy's, ignorance there shouldn't be just discounted because of her Judaism. She's just an idiot. Let's just call it what it is. Oh, we've got Bible quotes. I am he, affirming to the high priest and declaring in his hometown synagogue that Isaiah's prophecy was fulfilled in him. Well done. Well done. Charlie G. called himself both the Son of Man and the Son of God. No one comes to the Father except through me. Bingo. Yeah, said all of those things. Yes, she is Jewish. However, that does not excuse her behavior and lack of respect for another religion. Agreed. Okay, I'm still trying to move forward here. Let's see. Behar is Jewish, born and raised in Italian Catholic, typically has never read the Bible. Oh, is not Jewish. Oh, okay. I don't know if she is or if she isn't. I was taking some people at their word on that, but I don't care if you're Jewish or not. Jewish people recognize that Jesus Christ claimed to be the Son of God. They didn't believe it or buy it, but they recognized that it happened. We're talking about historical facts here, not talking about opinions on that. More people killed in Chicago on a weekend than in Iran. Until Iran started killing tens of thousands of its own people for protesting. That's true. That was true. More on Joy Behar. All right, I got to scroll down here a little bit more. I want to get into the last couple of stories that we shared. We got stuff from President Trump. Chairman Jordan's commentary on President Trump. We've got more TDS. Still scrolling. Bear with me. At this point, we are lucky that winning in 2024 got Trump freed of lawfare. When I think of accountability at this point, it's a joke. Yeah, I get that. It's frustrating, but it's not just about Trump being freed of lawfare. It's about them being punished, those who waged that lawfare against him, so that it is discouraged in the future when it's President Rubio or President Vance or candidates Rubio or Vance or DeSantis or whatever. We have to stop them from doing this. And the best way to get deterrence, a deterrence factor is harsh punishments for those who already did it the first time around. So that's why I want to see the accountability happen here. Still scrolling. You guys are active in the chat. I love that, by the way. All right. I don't know who Future Nation is, but we're going to obviously have to ban that clown. We don't need the trolls in here, but this is what they do. Somehow, some way, I'm going to have to get Dylan access to ban people in the chat while I'm doing the show, because I can't be doing all of these things at once. But we'll get the trolls out of here one way or the other. We'll figure it out. Yeah, see, Rosebud, Dylan, there are trolls on here. Please, Dylan doesn't have, I think it's only one admin on the page that can do that, unfortunately. Homelander AF, I hate racism. Good, then you must hate Joe Biden. Let's see. Blacks have a higher IQ than you. If you mean than Joe Biden, yeah, a great many of them do. Joe Biden's not a smart man. Multiple scumbag trollers in. I'm still going to look for some of the good comments here, especially on the Obama or the Biden-Obama. That black guy should have started doing phony sign language like the phony sign language guy at Nelson Mandela's funeral. Let's see. All right, boy, the trolls really took over largely in here. You know what I'm going to do is I think I might be able to grab a couple of those here. I just can't do it from the page that I'm on right now. I'm going to have to go back in. Massive troll attack here. Yeah, massive troll attack, which means we're obviously over the target. These are people who are concerned about what we're doing. And we got to try to get rid of them. All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to end it because we are at 9 o'clock. Dylan, go ahead and get that started here. But I'm going to try to find these individuals and get them out of the way. Yeah. Give me some names, if you would, and we'll get this thing handled as quickly as we can. What I love, honestly, what I really love is the fact that we have such an active chat community. People who watch the show during the live stream are very engaged in what we're doing and stories tangential to those conversations, interviews that we have. I don't want to see that ruined by the trolls. Okay. Normally, I would just ignore the trolls, but if they're ruining the chat to the point where I can't even read the comments, then we're going to have to start banning people. I don't want to have to ban people. I don't like to do that. Cancel culture is something that the left does, not what we do, other than Bud Light. So, but we'll do our best. And if you're watching this on replay, obviously you can just use the comment section. The chat won't be there, but the comment section will be. So make sure that you are giving us your thoughts on all of these issues so we can refer to them in upcoming shows. All right. Thanks to Congressman Jordan, Chairman Jordan. Thanks to Dylan, who's producing for us at the other end. Thanks to you for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, follow, and share. And don't forget to join the locals community as well. Become a paid supporter of the Unfiltered Insiders, and you'll be able to help us grow this to becoming even bigger and more impactful, to the point where even more trolls want to shut us up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe, and stay free. See you next time. Bye-bye.